how do we follow those obsessions, those paths, and utilize them to the best of our ability? I think if we're getting bored by something in our writing, we shouldn't do it. Like we got to figure out the ways that we're already succeeding and how to build those up.
Yeah. Hey, welcome to the TF Cast. It is September 20th here in the Solarium, and I am Grum.
And I'm your host, Jacob Bases. Today with us, we are very pleased to introduce writer and graduate student Alex French, who's here to talk about a program that's coming up at the Art Center in St. Peter, where you're going to be leading some writing classes. Alex, if you could just introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about the upcoming classes and what's going on in St. Peter.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys just for having me. It's cool to see a little background of the video I've seen before. There's more light here than I expected. But basically, yeah, I'm a graduate student with creative writing department at MNSU, and we have created this new position where I get to be like a resident artist with the St. Peter Art Center. And so what we're trying to do is revive the writing programs that used to be there. I don't know how many people are familiar with the Loft up in the cities. Basically, they do creative writing workshops. They have opportunities for people to work with editors and one-on-one feedback. What we're trying to do is kind of become a little version of that for the southern Minnesota, little miniature one. And I think the most important thing is that we're giving the opportunity of using recent graduates and also, second and third year students in the graduate creative writing program to kind of share their knowledge. So that's mostly what I'm trying to do, is facilitate the interchange between those people.
Cool. Well, so a couple questions I have right away is, you said we created. Do you mean people in the creative writing program? Is that like who created the position?
Old member of this podcast, Jeff Herbach, was the one who came up with it, and then working with Ann Fee and Rhonda Redman out at the Art Center.
Cool. Yeah, I was going to say, I know that we were once setting up a production very quietly, tiptoeing around one of Rhonda's writing classes. So I know they have had some writing classes there. But this is going to be like an expansion of that program. And what can people who are participating in it expect to do? You mentioned that they would have some like ability to have people edit things for them, or is that adjacent to the class in another way?
Yeah. So yeah, typically so let me just like lay out what we've got going for us. I think first off, there should always be a free component. So we have, basically, I think of it as like adult study hall, because what is writing if not giving yourself more homework in life? But like people can show up on Mondays and talk about their writing for a little bit, then just write for an hour and then kind of debrief. You get to meet people in the community who are also engaged in similar obsessions, ideas, about writing. Then we have like the more complete classes. We have generative writing classes that are once a month. Those are led by a different teacher every time, and they're basically an hour and a half of where you're just going boom, boom, boom. People are giving you prompts and ways to think about writing in new ways and help you generate new material. And then we have longer 8-week classes. Those can take workshops where people do share their work with each other, but mostly there's a larger element of that is craft lessons, where we look into specific parts of writing and try to illuminate that and how the struggles of that and how to better work towards it.
Sure.
I feel like I'm talking too long, but the last thing you said, asked about, was editorial work. That's a separate thing. Yeah. And I think the nice thing about that is we're giving just like insanely this is kind of half subsidized by MNSU, and so we are able to give really cheap rates for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really important for accessibility
Sure.
reasons.
And like, also you talked about this free course, not free course, like it's basically like people can just come in and there's space to write there. And is that supposed to be something where you're just kind of around folks, or like is there some kind of conversation that happens that allows it? Like, is there a social component to this event, or is it just people like sitting there and writing?
Yeah, no, like it is like kind of like that nerdy thing. It's like coffee shop vibes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where people are just kind of on their own for an hour of it. But I think it's really important that they do get that opportunity to talk beforehand and set their intentions for what they're writing. Think about what they're struggling with or what they want to work on this day, this week, and then also afterwards, just like it's hard to write and sit down for an hour, and it feels good after you do it, and it's nice to just talk about it and be able to share, just like one small triumph of what you've done.
Oh, so that there is like some kind of like time structure to that study hall thing where it's like we're going to write for an hour, and then after that we're going to declare that the hour has passed, and now you can stand up and it's appropriate to greet people.
Yeah, for sure. Like, yeah. And like we can like post our little flag and feel like happy about something,
Sure. And that might be a good spot for people who are becoming interested in some of those other classes, because to be clear, the other classes are individual and you pay for them as you go.
Yeah, so the generative writing class, it's just like a show up $10 fee. That's like very easy. I think it's like a little bit of a step up from our study hall session, because you are getting led a little bit more. But yeah, the other classes are like 8 weeks where you get to come in and focus, and you're gonna continue to work and build on something over the course of those 2 months.
Can you like go a little bit further on what that focus might be like? So for me, every week I probably write about 2 to 3 pages of comedy, for example, and that ends up going into a stand-up routine. If someone was writing that, or a blog, or attempting to like, I don't know, script a podcast or something like that, would that be the kind of thing that someone could work on there, or is this for storytellers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the cool thing about writing is it's just a different form of communication, right? It's just deliberate way of creating writing, of making meaning with another person, trying to communicate and transmit and get that reception. So I absolutely believe in whoever is in a class, whoever we have, we're going to meet them where they're at, and we're going to try to get these lessons to point towards them. Most of the people we have are like CNF, which is creative nonfiction, like memoir stuff. But yeah, I think jokes are a perfect form of writing, because it's a smaller. It's a little bit like poetry. Sometimes you can see how structure works a little bit easier when you come into that form. How do you feel about like reverse engineering that, thinking about your craft when writing? Not to turn this interview.
No. I mean,
good.
that is basically how I think about it. I normally, if I'm gonna write a bit, I think about something that has made me laugh, and normally it's like I'll just like laugh uncontrollably at something that I can't explain why it's funny, and then I have to figure out how to like get other people to have that same reaction by sifting it through what I know about society, and yeah, I guess it is just. I hope I'm answering your question correctly.
No.
That you lead people to the water from which you've drank.
Yeah, I love that.
And I sometimes I don't always have to have the words for it, and I have to act up more, or like do a bit more, or like add something else. And I think that would be very difficult in a longer form. For example, if I was attempting to write a novel or something, I think I would have trouble creating a stable narrator.
Yeah.
I think that would be a place. And I've noticed that like even like investing in myself as a performer, that like, am I doing a bit? Is this me? When am I, and when am I not doing a bit? And then like, does anyone have a perception of that? I'm sure you felt similarly, Zach.
So you write way differently than I do. I'm not good at completing thoughts in the same way Jacob is. I write way more like ideas, and then I workshop them for a while, and then I do them like into my phone camera, and then like rewrite it and think about how I'm moving and things like that. So I'm much more of a like storyteller, and I kind of lean into my personality a little harder than Jacob does. So my writing is more like coming up with ideas and then breaking it down piece by piece based on did people laugh at this? Should I just cut this whole thing out? That's the most surprising thing with writing for me, is how usually I end up cutting out 90% of it and finding the same idea comes across.
No, I love that, because I think what we're getting at is that writing, whether it's in like jokes or a novel, it comes down to process. And so I think that's the thing. Even in like an English 101 class that I'm teaching, what we're trying to do is we're trying to find strategies and processes that work for ourselves that we can take. And those things I think are very universal. Talking about like personas that we're cultivating, that voice. I'm thinking about you when you're talking about that bit. A lot of times, like when we do readings, I think this is one of the great things about doing like shorter readings where you get in front of an audience. You start to realize where there are places in your writing where you haven't clarified enough, where you have to, add context. And I think what we're trying to do in longer form writing is pull that in, that stuff that you want to say outside, and bring that into your own writing, bring that voice, be more authentic, be more yourself.
Yeah. I find myself over contextualizing really often, and really needing to find where the meat of why something funny or is something funny or interesting. A cool thing me and my band have done a few times now is like object writing, where you do like 10 minutes on like a word or 5 minutes on a word, and then we even do a 1 minute and a 30-second just for fun. And that's like a whole different thing, completely trying to like inform like physical ideas and feelings with words, and then also trying to make it melodic, or whatever kind of syntax you have to use is always it's really exciting, it's really interesting, but it's really fun to do it like super fast, like just like flexing the muscle.
Yeah, sometimes I think about writing exercises like that as like actual exercise, where we have to use like warm-ups to kind of get ourselves. No one's gonna go sprint 800 meters or whatever. I don't know. I can't sprint 50 meters, but like you have to like jog a little first. You have to stretch. I that's what I think about with those kind of things, and then it gets you out of your typical mindset where you kind of get in your same ruts. It's like that little jag that helps push the sled out of the ice rut, kind of a thing.
Triple Falls is a media and event production company based in southern Minnesota. We specialize in multicam live streaming and sound and lighting for event productions. Contact us today to learn more, or subscribe online to join our newsletter and stay up to date about events and things going on in the area. Thanks for tuning in. Back to your show.
So I guess the kind of like what we've come back around to with this longer 8-week class is that no matter what you're writing, you're gonna there will be someone who could be there to help you push that forward, with like some there's a group of grad students, and you're going to come together as part of a community.
Yeah, so I think that's my role as facilitator. That's how I'm seeing this, is to make sure that the material is always pushing towards those students. But for this specific 8-week class that we're doing on craft, I'm bringing in 8 different recent graduates or current students who all have this one type of thing that they're obsessing about, whether it's like revision or line brick by brick is how my friend Nathan calls it. How do the pieces work together? And so I just think it's such a cool, valuable resource we have here where people are working on the same problems you are and are thinking about these deeply and are trying to figure out how best we can work on them and communicate with them.
Sure. How that kind of like brings us back to like a really common theme of this podcast is like the community aspect of whatever's going on in whatever corner of the arts world we are. How has this need been called to in the area? Like obviously someone determined to set this up, and like how has the community responded? What is the writing community in this area in St. Peter, and the community of students as well at MNSU like?
Yeah. I think, as we all know, COVID hit and it hit hard and it like broke down some of these like arts communities. So like I was using that silly metaphor with the Iditarod sled, like we're stuck in the ice right now and we're trying to jag it forward so that we can start gliding again. So I think right now it's just, building up enough knowledge. And I think first that just starts with building these spaces where people can come in. So yeah, I think there's definitely, I've seen interest. I've met a few people, but I think it still needs to grow.
Sure. What would you like to see? For example, if you had a more ideal community around authorship or writing, I don't know what word you use for that, but what does a totally supportive writers community look like?
Love that. Because I think it does come all the way down to support and understanding I guess how this can be valued and how what they are already doing is valuable. I think a lot of people write in such solitude and such darkness that it's really hard to make that little jump and get out there and trust someone else with seeing some of your work, because writing is always just your perspective, your worldview is coming out in these words, and so that's little bits of your soul out there, and you want to be able to like trust that everybody who you're working with on it as it's in process is going to take care of it. So I think that's the first thing, and I feel like we always cultivate that really well in any classroom I've been in. Even going back to like middle school classes and English 101, I feel like you create that intent and you show it and model it and you trust them with yourself and your work, and that it works out that way. But so I think that's the first thing, and then just when people do that, trusting to come in.
And this is like an example of how that can work just outside of academia in general. Because it's supported by the college, but this isn't probably for like a whole bunch of people who are currently in the literature department. It's probably for people who are outside of the department who still have like an standing interest in literature.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing I think though that's really cool about writing is, even when you learn something, you come back to it in a new place later on and you learn something else from it. So whenever I'm teaching something, I'm learning so much. And I know I haven't been doing this as long as, Jeff, but I've heard him say the same thing, when he goes back and rereads these craft books and we talk about them and we talk about these lessons and we think about how they're applying to our own work and how we've struggled with them or succeeded in them, the little strategies we found. I feel like these things are evergreen.
Sure. Well, I think that there's a really big social component to that too, because a lot of people want to put school to bed. You know, they want it to they want to graduate, get a piece of paper, and now they're learned. And you know, I would imagine that most people who stay in academia and most people who value lifelong learning just know that you never stop. And if you do, it gets built into your ego in a certain way. And I think that's why we have a strong resistance socially to new information sometimes, because it's oh, well, actually I learned in 8th grade that that's not true. It's well, that was in 1972, Jan.
I find myself constantly, I have a lot of weird skills like juggling, stilt walking, music. I just collecting skills, I guess. But the number one thing I've learned about that is almost everything I've ever tried to learn to do, it's a constant moving forward, and then you hit a point where something you learned back here, you have to go back and fix in order to keep moving past that point. So I kind of just constantly find myself having to come back to old concepts in order to actually push myself to the next level of understanding.
I love that. Yeah, the building blocks, they were kind of in place. They're just a little janky, and we have to go back and fix it and actually make it strong enough for us to keep going. I like that.
Sure.
I think you should do some stilt walking on this. I mean, you guys got video, a little juggling in the background.
I could.
It's almost tall enough in here for that. Nobody knows how tall it is.
We can go out into the porch. That's definitely not dangerous from this level.
I'm surprised we've never done a porch episode.
Most people don't even know of the porch.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, no one will ever see this.
Yeah. What is the is this a graduation requirement for you, or something you're going to continue doing as you I mean, either way?
No, yeah. So my hope is that we build this foundation strong enough that a different graduate student can take over the reins every year, becomes a graduate assistantship that people can just take over.
Cool.
I think it's really important that people get to bring their own new takes into how we can move things forward.
Sick.
Yeah, I love that.
What interests you as as a writer yourself? What are you into?
Oh gosh, what is my writing? I guess mostly just depression. Just trying to beat down the readers. No. I think with joking, with comedy, it is that sadness and finding joy, and then being really aware of place and how those intertwine. I think place is super huge to me. I'm from Montana, and so I'm kind of writing a lot about that, and just the way things are changing. And I think any writer knows that when you talk about a place and the way it used to be, what you're really talking about is a place and a time. And I think just investigating that and the way that people have always been, kind of reaching back towards a certain nostalgia that they had for something.
Yeah. I really struggle with nostalgia, man. It's every time I feel nostalgic for something, the first question I ask is that even real? Was that is the thing that I wish I was experiencing right now? Did that ever happen? I don't.
Yeah, it was one time you were hanging out with your buddies and doing this thing, and you're like, why don't I live that life anymore? Why am I not going down a hill on shopping carts? Yep. And then you're like, oh no, wait, I just watched that in a movie once.
Yeah.
I only did that once and I got hurt.
Yeah, more resilient back then.
Yeah,
for sure. I didn't even know that there are hills there's hills in Montana.
Yeah, I mean
mountains. Maybe.
Yeah, I think of them more as mountains, but it is weird being out here. I'm not used to all of these hills. I feel like I'm trapped by all of the foliage and the trees and shit. I can't see anywhere.
That's weird. I had the opposite when I was in Arizona this last Christmas. It was just so weird. I was like, I can see everything. What is going on? As soon as you get up on top of the canyon, you can see forever.
You can see everything, and then it's also oh, it's so empty. There's literally nothing.
Yep. It's like it is weird. I remember once I was actually flying. I have family in Arizona and Texas. I don't actually remember which place I was flying to, Arizona or Texas, but we had left MSP and I was looking out the window with my brother and I was like, "Look at that place, Zach." And my brother's name is Zach too.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Mankato for sure. Like it out the window, I was like, "That place looks cool," because it's just like there's all this farmland and then there's like a big like river valley gash like city kind of place. I every time I come down one of the hills in Mankato, I'm like, it's actually pretty sick how green it is here.
Texas and Arizona kind of feel like the same guy in a different hat.
Yeah, I could see that.
Back to the subject. Do you find it pretty hard to teach people about creative things like writing without influencing, like trying not to influence their voice or their vision too much? And if not, like, how do you avoid that?
Yeah, I think that's something everybody as a teacher should be like struggling with and investigating, interrogating. I think you have to be really intentional. But yeah, I mean, what I'm always trying to do is make people trust themselves more, and to I think often in writing, you kind of mentioned that with your jokes, your story structure, you write and 90% of it goes away after you found that one jewel to like hang on to. And I think so much of doing this writing process in these classes and reading and listening to other people is about finding those little hot spots and tuning your own meter into noticing them in your own work.
Yeah.
And so I think that's so much of what my job is to do, is to help people notice what skills they have, like what voice is actually already there that they didn't notice. They just kind of, I feel like often in our writing we take it for granted. This is how we sound. We think we sound different in a different story, but it's actually just a different point of view. It's just a different setting. The voice is always there. It's always carrying through. And so how do we cultivate that person's voice? So
yeah, it's easy to do in hindsight, but to like look forward and be like, oh, like what is the best utilization of that for me it's definitely like a pretty hard skill.
I agree. I don't think it's easy, and I think it continues to be developed. I just know that when I came into the grad program, I felt like me and a whole bunch of my cohort, my other peers, we all felt like we didn't quite know our own voice. And so this is just me saying that through my learning of this, I feel like that's how I've come to see it.
That's interesting because I imagine that's probably just something that when you really start getting into that stuff is in like a master's level class. I think of English and writing. I dabbled in creative writing for like my first semester or two in college, and I felt like I was constantly editing and like I was doing things that I didn't really care about.
No,
because I like coming up with ideas and saying stuff. But I can just do that on the block. I don't need to write it all down.
That. I feel like that's why I got into writing too, is because I'm like, well, I don't care about this insurance. Like, I don't know how we do about cussing on here, but like,
oh, you're good.
Cuss it up.
Let it rip, dude.
Like, so much of life is bullshit. So how do we find our ways into things we're interested about? How do we follow those obsessions, those paths, and utilize them to the best of our ability? I think if we're getting bored by something in our writing, we shouldn't do it. Like we got to figure out the ways that we're already succeeding and how to build those up.
Yeah. I watched a bunch of people have said it, but one of the main people I've seen say it is Trevor Moore and Ron White. But it's basically like this idea that like you can learn from other people how to be funny or how to be a good writer in a way where like you can get jobs and make people laugh. But if you don't start from like trying to figure out what like unique thing makes you funny and makes you good at what you do, it's a really fleeting like fan base basically, because they come for you for that one thing, like, oh, he does the hot pocket jokes. And since they don't actually like know who this guy is or what he's about, as soon as that runs out, there's just I can't think of the word I'm thinking for. The novelty basically wears off, and yeah, I just think that's an important idea. Just like when you actually put yourself out there, even if it sucks at first and like you're struggling, when you actually nail it, you're actually going to have like these like genuine followers because you actually have something to say or they like you for your personality. It's almost more important.
Yeah, I feel like that Hot Pocket guy got pretty famous himself. Too.
Yeah.
That's a real guy.
Yeah.
I
Jim
don't know
Gaffigan is huge for sure.
Oh,
but
he's the Hot Pocket guy.
Yeah. And
I
but
don't
it's
think
just,
I've seen the bit. Sorry.
but also like people don't know his name that do know the Hot Pocket joke and stuff
Oh.
like that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel like that's the really unique thing about like these types of arts is that when we get more specific towards our own worldview, it actually becomes more universal because we're all feeling those the pain, sadness, joy, despair. These are all human aspects, and our perspective into it, the way it's glinting in the light, people can see their own version of that. It's like colors. We can all look at this one color and decide, I'm done with this metaphor. It's poor.
I think a really easy thing to see what like the importance of like voice in that way is like a viral like YouTube video or TikTok. Like that person will gain like 1 million followers and then in like a day, and now their only choice is to either just do this shtick that got me famous that might not even be my real voice anyway, or like try to be like, look at, I also play Beyblades. Do you like Beyblades too? And versus like someone who's like built up a channel from like having 100, 200 viewers for like years. Those people's viewers are just like, they're there. That person can put out shitty videos for 2 years and all of those followers are going to stay and probably even watch them begrudgingly.
Yeah, the ephemerality of virality and our whole society, like it's harsh.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I genuinely don't think that I've had lots of very unhealthy feelings on the internet.
Oh yeah. Well, we run an internet company.
Yeah. Like it is like rough to like look at an opportunity, especially when you feel like it's not going along with your like initial intention, or if someone like misunderstands your joke but still thinks it's really funny and wants to tell everyone about it. Like especially if it's like your baby, like you don't like it you don't want to be like, well, hey, just get it.
When someone does your joke to someone else while you're there and they're just like butchering it right in front of you, it's like it hurts so bad. Or like to your other point, this weekend I did a joke about selling weed to people's kids and how they shouldn't be afraid of it because I've tried to sell weed to their kids already. And like wrong person could see that and it could totally be bad.
Yeah.
They're like, no, just you should feel good about it because your kid said no to me.
Yeah, exactly. That was the deal.
Yeah, your kid's not cool at all.
Yeah.
He's basically a snitch.
Because he wouldn't buy weed from me.
See, I was trying to jump in there and butcher it for you just on the spot so that we could get a live version of that.
Version, yeah. Okay, well, what about Alex? Just the guy. What are you into? What kind of stuff do you do outside of writing?
Oh, do I have a life outside of writing? I don't know. That's a good. I feel like I'm in like an old school interview where I have to say like I enjoy outdoors and cooking.
Pretend you're filling out like an eHarmony application.
Yeah. Mostly, honestly, it's just hanging around the community, being with friends, and honestly, it doesn't turn off. I feel like this is the kind of thing like you guys with your joke, thinking about that at all times. You enjoy music and stuff where you can kind of stop talking for a bit.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think it's just about hanging out with people and continuing to redirect how you're thinking about things.
Cool. Yeah, so you're pretty much most of your life around right now is pursuits of like writing, teaching writing, getting better at writing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Hanging out with friends.
I don't know.
Heck yeah.
And then I just turn on sports so that, I can distract myself from death sometimes.
Sure.
That's a classic move.
You have a team?
I like Atlanta baseball, so I'm feeling pretty okay right now. Living large.
I don't know anything about that.
I've held maybe 4 baseballs in my life.
Shit, all at once, or were you?
No, they were
them?
all
At least
years
3 of them
apart.
in the air.
Yeah. That's a good point. I probably have juggled some in my life.
Yeah, no, I'm a sports fan too, but I cheer for whoever the loudest person in the room is cheering for.
Yep.
Like I just want to absorb some of that energy. So
I love that.
A sports nomad.
I'm like a contrarian, clearly, because I'm always rooting for the underdog because I just want them to tie the game. So whoever's like losing, I just want them to get back so that they can just keep going longer and like overtime and
That's
shit.
very nice.
Sure.
It basically just means I'm always going to be the loser whenever I'm watching a sport.
Would you like a sport that went forever?
I think cricket tried to do that, right?
I don't know what that is. What is it? What do they do?
You know what? You don't know what cricket is?
I am aware of the UK.
I think it was like 3-day long games or something. They have a new version of it, which is like super speedy in like 5 hours or something. But
I think it's kind of like, how in volleyball you can only win, you have to win by 2. I think it's rules like that can just make it go on literally till it's done.
So the players like sleep.
I think they like take tea breaks in the old school.
There's definitely tea breaks for sure.
I don't know. That doesn't seem like a game anymore.
Go do walkabouts.
That's chill. I like that, I guess. It might be a good game for me, actually.
Go on a cruise on your penny farthing.
Yes. Well, do you want to do any plugs or bring people to the class somehow? Any housekeeping before we wrap up the podcast?
I think just checking in with the Art Center of St. Peter is the best way. Go to the website. It's not fully developed yet, so you can call as well, visiting them. We'll be there every Monday at 6 p.m. until 7:30 doing that writing group. I think that's the thing. I would love to see more people jump into the class that we have coming up October 22nd. It's going to be on Sundays. I think it's just going to be really cool. And I think it's going to be so valuable. We're going to get so much so many good minds just sharing the way they're thinking out there.
Heck yeah. Shout out to ARC setting up all these awesome classes at the Art Center.
Yeah, thanks, Ark. Thanks, Ann in Montana out there, too.
Yeah,
Rhonda.
And in Montana, you know how they do. Heck yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. It was nice to get to chat with you. I've seen you at the wine cafe a couple times.
That's the only other thing I do, right? That was
I was trying not to bring up Karaoke Spectator, but
I am more of the writer. You just gotta visualize.
Yeah, I mean that place is gold. You could write a dozen pages.
They're trying to send us out of here.
Oh, dang. All right. Well, bye, everybody.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.